All right, episode 56 of the Indie Creator Exchange. Today we have the other half of the Coates brothers. We interviewed James, which is already posted and is out there for the viewing. And his brother John is joining us today. And John, so happy to see you on this day after daylight savings time where we lost an hour of time. How you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Ready to get into it. I've been
Good.
doing comic stuff all morning.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so we thank you for providing us some sample
Yes.
copies here so we can flip through them. I'm holding in my hand Dino Beast #3, and I got a copy of Emerald Emu, and I don't see a number. Is this a one shot?
It's not a one shot. We're working on more, but it's sort of the only one right
Okay,
now.
so the unnumbered Emerald Emu, and I notice you have the Powerpulp
hmm
logo right on there. So this must
Yeah,
be put out in the last couple months, right?
yeah. Right when we started Powerpulp, like 3.5, 4 months ago, I printed that up and slapped the logo right on there.
Right on. Well, we're going to get into all of that, but we usually start our interviews with the first same question with everybody. And you might be at a disadvantage because we had your brother James on answering this same question. But take us back to the kiddie days, and what was your first influences? What was your first awareness of the comic world?
Well, I kind of like he said, my first exposure to comics was actually like independent comics and not
Uh,
superheroes, which might be different than some people. And I have my very first comic is
Oh
still
yeah. Oh
still
yeah.
surviving. You can see
Look
the
at that.
look at the tears and everything on here. Very well read. Elfquest #6 from the Marvel Color reprints,
right?
If I could
and
jump in real quick, John, I just want to jump in real quick.
yeah,
The feeling of your guys' Dino Beast, it feels like an Elfquest book. You know, the oversized that they would sell at
hmm.
the bookstores. So I did have that on my list to tell you. So yeah.
Oh, well, man, that makes me so happy to hear
So
to
it's
hear
you
you make
guys are channeling
comparisons
it.
when
You're
I've done
definitely
Elfquest.
channeling. Yeah, you're definitely channeling the pennies. So
Yeah, it's kind of
Um,
random sometimes what direction your life takes based on the happenstance of what comic first falls into your hands by any coincidence or any random selection. And the same goes for the records that you grew up with in your parents' collection that weren't like Perry Como. I remember, like, my dad had a lot of records I wasn't into, but then you come across Janis Joplin with Big Brother and the Holding Company and the Robert Crumb cover of Cheap Thrills, and it's like that took my whole life in a different direction. um,
yeah, yeah.
so you're influenced by I guess I mean, Marvel was a reprinting, the famous Elfquest series, but you start to get more aware of different creators and different titles. Did you ever get into the whole Marvel DC superhero movement when you were little?
Yeah, eventually, like we got like a big box of mixed comics for like an early birthday or something, and there was a lot of independent stuff in there. Original Ninja Turtles run,
whoa,
Usagi Yojimbo, more
nice.
Elfquest. So we had that in our minds early on, that you could do stuff that wasn't like superhero, but then there was some Spider-Man mixed in, and then as I got older, then I started to really get into
Yeah.
X-Men, and went to like this around our hometown at the old fairgrounds. There'd be like little like toy and comic shows,
Uh huh.
and there was some seller there who had all these books from the 80s and 70s and stuff, and he was just kind of liquidating his stock. And so he had all these X-Men's just like a buck a piece, and it was all that Jim Lee and Silvestri and Paul Smith, like the whole all that good era, and they were a buck a piece. And then if you got like 10 of them, he'd drop it to 50 cents. Like he was just just trying to get rid of this stuff. And so I just got a huge run all at once when I was, in middle school.
Right.
And,
Nice.
and then from there, we always enjoyed Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Mostly the Marvel stuff, but the DC always intrigued me more from like the look of the characters,
Okay.
right? Like the costumes, especially like the old Golden Age stuff, the
Yeah.
Hawkman kind of stuff. It was always just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. But then, you'd read the books and they'd never be quite as good as the Marvel ones, but they'd still look
They
fantastic.
they didn't humanize the characters ever since the beginning. I mean, there's we all have similar stories. Like I remember finding my $1 X Men's, but they were Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum's. So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I even scored X Men '97 for $1. It had a rip on the bottom of it, but yeah, my dad made me sell it all. So not gonna cry over spilled milk. um, so you're aware of the popularity of superheroes, but you're also kind of keeping your eye on the indie stuff because this is just what falls into your lap. So talk about now whether you had any actual training in art.
I did. I did my undergraduate studies in sort of fine art and art history, and so like I had like a degree in like drawing, um,
Okay,
and stuff like
illustration.
that. But then it was like after college, I sort of started to turn towards writing a little more,
Okay,
and especially once my brother started to get into art, and I'd see how fantastic like his drawing was developing. Then it was like, well, let's come up with some stories. I'll write something down, and you tell me if you like it, and we'll go from there.
yeah, it must have been nice to have a brother that was also on the same page. Did you do much art when you were in middle school and high school?
Oh yeah, drawing all the time. We were always drawing, and then we draw weird, like funny little animal characters and stuff. And then Image hit when we were in middle school, really. And so then we tried to draw like Rob Liefeld, and of course, just weird, jacked up superhero guys that are like terrible drawings, but it was fun.
Yeah. What got you off the ground to start making your first published work?
I guess just sort of a drive to like just tell a story, and thinking about stuff. And Dino Beast was sort of the first sort of story, and just this idea of this sort of dinosaur barbarian with sort of He-Man influences from my youth, and just kind of thinking like, well, what could I do with that, and how could a story come about? And then it just got to a point where it's like, oh, this is really good, maybe we should like do something with it. And then we were just kind of rolling from there. And then after that, it was you know we have no I've had no limit on like ideas for like extra stories
Yes.
and stuff. It's just like, oh, how much time do I have to write this, get this one out written, or the
Well,
next.
you and your brother being twins, you guys must like it. Just there must be like this molecular bouncing back and forth if both of you just are walking away from seeing a ninja movie and one of you says something like, "Oh, it would be kind of cool to see, you know, Ninja 4, after this, show Kasoji ones and stuff." And then you guys are just basically almost like agitating each other. Like, you're like, "Oh yeah, we could do this, we can do that." So that must be like a given and
Oh
not
yeah,
not coming up short on ideas.
yeah. The when we get together, it's so easy to just talk out like a full comic in 20 minutes or something, just like
Oh wow.
complete vision. And then then it's like, oh, I gotta write this down, and then go from there. And then he's already like sketching ideas and stuff, and it's like, okay, we'll slow down. We're like, oh no, that's good. We'll just add that in. That works, because so some of our our work, like our page counts will be like, we'll start with an idea of what the page count might be, and then it's always completely different by the time we finish.
Yeah.
Because one of us will come up with something and be like, oh, we should add this in there, or he'll start drawing something and it'll be like, oh, that's fantastic, let's expand that.
Yeah, things happen along
And
the
Jake,
way.
Jake, just for the record, John also colors, so he's just not on writing duties. So with Words and Colors, John Coates, for Ninja 4. You're the colorist for. Yeah, you're the colorist for, Dino Beast too.
Dino Beast, yeah.
So you're doing more heavy lifting, than just the guys with the words. The guy with the words. So I just want that noted.
Yeah, that's like out of necessity. When we started, like, we could have done black and white, but we thought like, oh, let's do it in color, because we're thinking along the lines of like cartoons and stuff. And then it was like, well, I have more time. I can color pages as he slides them to me. And then it was like, okay, now I got to figure out what program to use and how to use it.
Right.
What do you use?
Clip Studio Paint.
Clip Studio Paint. Okay.
Yep. So it's sort of the one, designed for manga artists. And basically, because like you can just buy that program, you don't have to rent it like Photoshop. So yeah. I was like, okay, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And just buy it once and get after it. And it's got a lot of nice features, for how you can divide up the layers and fill stuff. Like, you can go really fast.
Got a lot of brushes, right? You can import brushes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and you have to teach yourself all this stuff on the fly, right?
Yeah.
You know how that is. Right. So so tell us about the first published work that you did. It was which one?
It was a Dino Beast book 1.
Yep.
Right. Okay. And did you guys start attending cons and tabling at cons and stuff?
Not the first year when we put it out. Maybe in the second year, once we had started working on book 2, we started going to a few shows here and there. We had sent a copy to when we had put it out to Ed Piskor and Jim Rugg, and they gave us like some tremendous feedback, and were like really positive and encouraging, and that kind of kept us going. And we're like, all right, well, let's do some more. Let's do another one, and that really gave us the boost to just keep making comics. And then we've done like some shows. Like, I know some people get around to like lots of shows. We don't, we're like in the middle of the country, so a lot of shows end up a little more towards the coast, so it's a little more expensive for us to get there. And there's, and we like to go to like some of the more independent shows. And a lot of those are like curated, for like table space. And unfortunately, like we haven't been able to get into a lot of those when we apply. Yeah. So that's kind of limited the number of shows we've been able to do. But we've always enjoyed them. Shows. Any
specific shows that you can mention that you haven't been able to get into? Like, if you tried like SPX and CXC.
Yeah, SPX. We did get into CXC one year. We've applied other year, but we got in off the wait list.
Oh, wow.
At like the week before the show.
Oh, geez.
And we're like, okay, yeah, we'll drive out. And we're Ohio guys. Like, we're sort of born and raised a good chunk of our life in Ohio before we moved to Iowa, and so we always hoped that would have a little more weight towards us getting picked to go to the show, but it never has
Right.
really. Um, yeah, you know that like haven't got into like Cake yet, you know, in Chicago, and that'd be a much closer show. Um, Stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
your artwork is great. So let's talk about the storyline involved. You got the ninja, the Dino Beasts, and you also have this Emerald Emu. So,
Yeah.
did you guys come up with it by committee, or was this like the brainchild of one or the other? What was the germ behind each one of your titles? Take us in chronological order.
Yeah, so Dino Beast was yeah, just me and James coming up with this idea of this dinosaur character, sort of a hadrosaur based character, you know, because we liked all the head crest on those kind of
Right,
dinosaurs. Um, and yeah, and then I just started putting together, you know, this story about like that he's from a our main hero Komodo is from this clan that's kind of going extinct, so that there's always this like underlying kind of sadness there, you know, because you don't know if he's gonna actually be the last of his
yeah,
line or not. um and then just started developing, you know, different had these other different dinosaur characters and species, how they interact with his clan. You know, are they old enemies or not? And we've built in some good little teasing a lot of sort of like deep history. And there's some sort of like metaphysical stuff going on in there as well. And we've got sort of some mammal characters that are kind of butting heads with dinosaur characters, you know, sort of a rivalry there, you know, for dominance. Um,
and the,
and Yeah.
what and so you just start in with this, and do you kind of explain the world that they're living in little by little?
Yeah, little by little, you know, there isn't it can be, it's not like super challenging, but there's a little bit of a challenge to it, which is the kind of comics that I like, where like you got to put in a little effort as the reader.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just makes the experience so much greater.
Yeah.
It's so much, you know, it's worth your time. It's, you can really get into it and reread it and enjoy it, and there's, you know, there's something there. um, and so that's kind of how we're building out the world, you know, like little pieces at a time,
Right.
intermixed with like all our the crazy action and violence and sort of like the plot.
Yeah, it's interesting how
Hmm.
different worlds are treated. Like my favorite movie of all time is Road Warrior, and they go from Mad Max, which was kind of dystopian, into Road Warrior Part Two, which is definitely a lot more post-apocalyptic. And you're wondering like what happened in between. And in the subsequent movies, they hint at it, and maybe they'll show you like a little more of a scene here and there, but they're really stringing the audience along, because they're probably just figuring it out on their own, as they go as well, right? And that's what it's like
Yeah.
with creators. Like, we look for opportunities where we can kind of explain a little bit more about the backstory and just try to bring it in drips and drabs, right?
Yeah, that mystery is so great in a story, like always having just that little bit of something that makes you wonder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's it's like a need to know, right? Need to know basis. Everything is distributed. Information is given out on a need to know basis. So you don't need to know the whole background just to follow this one conflict. But eventually, you might need to explain the whole thing. So that's a great thing about storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, like with like writing, you know, that I've learned, like writing comics is cutting out what you don't need, you know, cutting out like dead weight, and
Yeah.
only keeping there what actually serves like your purpose and what you really want a reader to absorb. And like I'll write like a lot of extra stuff, and then we start getting into it, and the pages start developing, and I start seeing James's art, and then I'll just be like, okay, I don't need these two lines, I don't need this, I don't need anything in this panel. Like I'll just delete whatever I had was thinking about, and you just like cut and cut and cut, um, and then you can get down to something that I think really works.
Um,
Who are your go-to writers, John? Like, do you have like comic book or other?
Other I'm a big fan of sort of, I guess now we call more classic writers. Like Tolkien, big Robert E. Howard fan.
All right.
Like I like old like Sherlock Holmes, right? Conan Doyle,
Yep.
stuff
Yep.
like that. Um, yeah, and comics wise, I really love Jeff Smith
okay.
and the way he writes and puts his stories together. Stan Sakai, the Peonies, of course.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, good stuff. I took a course with Denny O'Neill at School of Visual Arts, and I refer to that so much. Kurt knows, and one thing he said is that good writing, especially if you're writing for the comics where space is limited, or TV where like space is extremely limited, or movies, there should not be anything in there that doesn't, all point to the outcome at the very, very end. And that's the difference between like really good movies and really bad movies. Everything is essential.
yeah, and you always got to remember it's a visual medium.
Mm.
And so if there's something that can be shown, like you don't have to tell it. Like you don't have to write that he's punching somebody. Like you just show the punch,
Right.
right? And like in the old days, like they would like caption exactly what you're saying, and in some comics, so you can go back through them now, and like you don't need to read anything. Like you can ignore all the words because all they're doing is just telling you exactly what you can see visually. And so I think if you have a good artist, like they're gonna give you like gestures and expressions, and they're going to show emotions and stuff in the characters, and then you don't have to reiterate that in what you're writing down.
Well, that's the American culture. We watch basketball games and football games and baseball games, and they're explaining to us what we can plainly see right in front of our eyes. The guy just hit a home run and everyone's going crazy. I know, I can see that.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
I just watched it. But maybe somebody's like, in the kitchen, and they're turning around the corner. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
right. I mean,
So,
that's
and so yeah, I mean,
no. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's also a form of hypnotism, I think. Not only the repetition, of like seeing it and hearing it, because when you're a teacher, they I've been through a lot of training as a teacher, masters in education, and they say that if you really want the students to remember something, you have to tell it to them at least 6 times, and it's best if you tell it to them in multiple formats, right? So maybe, and
Right.
now comics and movies and everything, that's entertainment, but there is a little bit of work involved, because if there's some important plot point, or if there's some important character trait and you want the people to remember that, you really want it to stick into their mind, the best thing to do is repetition, but not repeating it the same way, like saying it different ways, or
Right.
saying
Yeah.
in multiple modalities, right? So it really sinks in, and this really your hooks. You really want to get a hook in somebody with something. You really want to stress something. You gotta hammer it. So that's one part about writing where you do need to kind of like compensate for the fact that American audiences have to have a lot of stuff spoon fed to them, kind of. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And so after we did Dino Beast 3, like then the three sort of books together is like almost 300 pages of material, and then we just kind of needed a break from doing
Right.
dinosaurs, you know. And then that's when like James started to just draw for fun all these little like black and white ninja drawings just coming out of shadows and stuff, which is what we put together in our ninja zine. um, and he had those, and then I was just like, well, that is so fantastic, let's do a ninja story. And then instantly we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do show Kasugi, uh, and that kind of thing. And then we were off and running with Ninja 4, and also writing the other Ninja sequels that we have yet to do.
Right. And approximately what year did that come out?
Oh, that is maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3.
22.
22.
22. Yep.
Oh, there you go, multiple years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Okay. Um,
The time runs together.
sure.
And I started working on the Emerald Emu around the time we were still doing Ninja 4.
Right. Well, I had a copy of the Ninja book last interview. That was great. You know, it's a good showdown right at the end there. So yeah, tell us about Emerald Emo. It's a little bit different, right? It's a little bit of a palate cleanser, but compared to the other style, you have a different
Yeah,
printing
yeah,
format too.
yeah. And Emerald Emu is sort of my attempt at creating an original superhero. And I do that with my buddy Brian McCrae, who's another fantastic artist.
Yeah.
And I had met Brian at some cons, and we connected through Instagram and stuff, and just all talking comics, and always loved his art style. And so I was like, well, maybe he'd be the guy. He could really, if he had time, would want to do a superhero thing. And he was all about it right away. And yeah, Emu, it's sort of like Silver Age and Golden Age kind of inspired a bit of the story, and the way it's put together. And I had the idea, I had like the name, like I was like, "Ooh, I want her to be called Emerald Emu," and I knew I wanted her to have kind of a bird kind of helmet,
Uh huh.
sort of very like Hawkman
Yeah.
kind of
Also.
inspired kind of a thing, because I love the how ridiculous that is, but it's so amazing because it is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I pitched that to him, and then he just came back with like the design and just sort of knocked it out of the park. And the same with like the villain, the giraffe. Like liking old Spider-Man villains, I was like, oh, the Rhino is like one of the best villains. Like, just looks amazing. And I was like, I want like a villain, only it's like the giraffe, and she's gonna have this crazy long giraffe head with the neck and everything. And I just was like, that's can you do anything that works with this? And he came up with that design just super fast, and it was just like, yes, we're off and running. This is gonna be amazing.
Um, what about the decision to make Emerald Emu a little bit on the muscular, stocky side?
Yeah, I mean, just I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with like a I don't know, muscled up, strong like female
Buffet.
character. Like in like you'll have a lot of in the more like the big two comics. It's like they'll say that like a female character is super strong, but but they'll draw her like a swimsuit model or something like that. And it's like, well, in real life, there are like actual like athletes that are women. Like, well, why can't the heroine actually look like an athlete? Like you're going to draw the men like athletes, but you're not going to draw the female characters like athletes when that's what you're telling us they
Yeah.
are. And so it's just, I guess, just along those lines of thinking of like, well, let's make, if she's going to be super strong and do all this stuff, we'll like, make her look like it.
Yeah, well, when we designed Turbo Pit Fighter, which we'll talk about at
Mm-hmm.
the end, but
Yeah.
we saw this kind of trend I mean, we actually had the idea for this long ago, but just in working on this now as opposed to something else, there's definitely a trend now. You might see a lot of like people on TikTok and Instagram, and they're putting videos of themselves working out, right? And it's like all these females that are really, kind of like appreciating, exercise, the muscles, the body form, and that goes back to like the history of the Greeks and Romans, where they really, idealized, the body, and they really, put people that were in really good shape on a pedestal. They started the Olympics. They had all those statues, but
Right.
but you don't see a lot of it in comics, especially Marvel and DC. You got the She-Hulk. Sometimes they draw her like a little more muscly, but sometimes they kind of just draw her regular proportion, like Invisible Girl. Um, and
Right.
and so I've been on the lookout for a long time now of you know stocky, thick, muscular, whatever you want to call it, superheroes, and not only in comics but also in movies. Right, Kurt? They had that movie Love Lies Bleeding, which was centered
Yeah,
around
yeah,
the female bodybuilder, and then um, there's just characters here and there. I think that D&D movie, Dungeons and Dragons, had one of the characters was this like kind of muscular female that kicked ass, right? So you're seeing it like a
Hmm.
little bit in drips and drabs, but probably the pivotal moment was Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, who wasn't necessarily so massive, but she was really like defined and cut up and stuff, right? You could tell like she
yeah.
spent the time in between the two movies just in the gym working out. And then like you would see Natalie Portman as Lady Thor, and she had like just a little bit of a triceps poking out, like boop. So I'm noticing those things because I don't think there's enough of it. So I really applaud taking the character, and your artwork's really great on this. I know this is a team effort, but you got I see influences in the art, and I'm wondering if I'm on base here. A little bit of the Hernandez brothers and faces, and sometimes I see a little Don Simpson in there. But I'm wondering if you're familiar with Milton Knight, um, who was an indie guy that had a character like I think her name was Spunky. She was like the Midnight Skunk, and he had we once did an episode on him. He worked for Fantagraphics. He worked for pretty early on some of the indies. He's gone now, but he had a style, and if you're not aware of him, I do see a real influence in this. Maybe you want to check him out, Milton Knight. He also worked in
I'm,
animation too, so he was out there like in the in Hollywood doing a lot of design too. But I I was wondering if he was on your radar.
no, I've never heard of him, and I'm always digging and looking for comics and influences. So that's interesting. I'm gonna definitely look him up, Milton
Yeah,
Knight.
he's
So,
a
so
little more
Jake,
cartoony, but yeah.
Jake, just
Uh
for
huh.
clarity, just for clarity. So Brian McCrae is the artist for Emerald
Right.
Emu,
I noticed. Yeah. So I noticed it's a team effort. You got the
and
art style here, but I'm wondering if that was conscious. Maybe that's a question mark.
well, now Brian has one of my favorite comics that I'm still waiting for issue one to get reprinted, which I'm hoping Powerpulp will have very very soon, which is his Crania, which is once again another powerful barbarian, and he has the chops. We're going to get him on there. I've been speaking a little bit to him on the thing. We're going to online and everything, but I'd like to um, kind of dig just a little bit more into the relationship with and working with another artist, which is not who's not your brother. Was there a sort of like a unified front towards the character, like you guys share, like let's say ownership of it, or were you sort of the one heading it and then commissioning him to give you the support visually?
Mm. Well, like when I brought Brian in, like, so I had the idea for like where the story where I wanted it to go, and like the name and like a idea of what the look might be. But then when I brought him in, I told him, it'll be a 50-50 all the way, and we'll just share the character because like I know it, like it's a visual medium, and so like he's going to be doing all the designing, and like and and the visuals are then gonna inform how I take the story, even after I see the character or see what he's doing with certain scenes. Like it could change. It'll change what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So I knew right away that it had to be a complete partnership. That's just kind of like how I view creating independent comics. Yeah, and so yeah, I'd give him the script. I do it like a full script kind of thing, but even with like my brother too, like I'll shoot him the script and I'll say, hey, if you have any ideas, like let me know. We can change any of this that you want to change. If you like this scene you start drawing, and I envision it as like a 1-page thing, but you want to go 2 or 3 pages because you've got some cool ideas, then like that's totally fine. We'll just do it,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
a
So that's how just kind of how I operate, is like, I'll write something down and like, I just have to put pages and sometimes like panel breakdowns as I'm writing in my own head, just so I can keep the pacing straight, as I'm seeing it. But then once it goes to the artist, like I'm always open for how they see the story, how they see the characters, what they want to change. Like I'm all about. I think that collaboration gives
Yeah,
you a better finished product than
yeah,
if it's going to be like cut and dry. It has to be this way, So yeah, there's all kinds of great stuff in Emerald Emu that comes from Brian.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
like
could see
some
it.
of the
You could see it.
interactions between like Molly Morgan here, as you're showing, and like her friends from the
Yeah,
library.
yeah,
Where he just gave me these designs where I was just like, she's gonna have like 2 friends from the library, and they're so she can have people around that like are trying to figure out who the emu is, but and
yeah.
that kind of hidden secret identity stuff.
It's a great 2 pages. So did you had this written and then he gave you the characters and art, or was there another middle step where the
Yeah, yeah.
characters
There was
were
more of a middle.
designed and then you gave a little bit more input and then he was able to kind of just rock it?
Yeah, I think I wrote like less than this, like just a little bit of like I think a scene like this could be cool, and here's some banter from like the characters.
Right.
And then he came back with like the drawings of like the friends, and I was like, oh, this is so amazing. Let's really develop this. And we're definitely like, because we're working on the next issue right now, and
Awesome.
there's definitely going to be a lot more with the friends squeezed in there. Like first issues are kind of hard, and like you gotta like we really had to establish like the emu herself and kind of what she's doing and her superheroing and all that kind of stuff. And then I think the story gets even better in the next few.
So I have another question, um, which is kind of obvious, but um, what are the plans, or can I get copies of Jazz Comics #6, Face Punch Comics #2, and Dirt? I got to get 2 copies of Dirty Birds #9. So, and then I can backtrack through the first 8. Can you talk a little bit about like manipulating me as a reader?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see it as much in like a lot of modern comics, but in the stuff that we grew up reading, you'd always have those great captions of like what
Yeah.
else to check out. Where did someone appear before? Um, and I was like, it was just like, we have to do this. And especially like right here where, we're just doing a quick flash of she's thinking about like villains, her sort of arch enemies. Then like, yeah, we should absolutely just like drop in like the last time you would have seen it. So just as if this book has been
Great
going for a
touch.
while. And, like Jazz Comics is a good sort of golden age kind of title,
Yeah.
and Face Punch, and and Dirty Birds for the bosom bandit. It's just like, yeah, we got to do that. And, we could eventually do it, just do an issue and release a Jazz Comics or something like that, which is always the fun thing.
I'm instigating that. I am I think I love writing myself into corners because it was one of my favorite aspects of Marvel comics when I would get into them. Daredevil, particularly, where over time you would find this kind of shift in the story flow, and then you would find out in the letters column they got called out on missing a mark or skipping something that was said 5 to 10 or 20 issues ago, and so they kind of have to like revisit and support and move along that. So with my upcoming Crom anthology, I have a particular story which I think is going to be very jarring, but it was my way of just getting, it was like 3 or 4 heavy duty ideas in there. So I can actually refer stories down to the first anthology, Lala and the Time Machine, and people go, oh, okay, or shit, I got to go back to Crime Anthology #1 and pick that up and be able to keep the consistency going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could always do those books with another artist or something, like, it's almost as like a spin-off title, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to get the joke, but there's going to be some people that wonder.
Which is good, I'll just be like, I'll keep you on the hook, be like, we're going to reprint it at some point, but while you're waiting, buy one of my other books.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, back cover there by Chris Anderson.
Yeah.
Fantastic artist, and he did that wonderful pin up there for us.
Saw that, yeah.
On the back. Yeah, and then after Emu, we were gonna maybe do, like I said, like we've got some other ninja stuff written, and I had other ninja Emu scripts written, and I got Dino Beast 4 that we're getting back into the works on right now. But then we took a break and did Stardust, our family fun comics, which I don't know if you guys have that or not, but
no.
Is it actually family friendly?
With the with Stardust. Yeah.
It is not. I mean, that's kind of the joke, It's uber violent.
Gotcha.
But it's violence for the whole family,
Right. Yeah. I don't know where I've seen those. Maybe
online,
maybe
definitely on Instagram.
Yeah, probably Powerpulp. Great. So,
should we move into that conversation? Should we move into the conversation about Powerpulp so we can start doing some promotion there, and maybe even answer some questions? Not only Jake and I, but some of the fans that we've had come through Turbo Pit Fighter when we're on live and they're making comments.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
So yeah, John, why don't you just go ahead and give the elevator shtick for what and who are involved in Powerpulp Comics, and then we'll probably throw some questions at you.
Okay, yeah. So Powerpulp is a new collective of self-publishers. And we've sort of come together under a umbrella branding that we call Powerpulp, and we distribute our own comics to direct to consumers, and also to retail locations. And we kind of work together to do our own PR and marketing and share resources and ideas amongst the members, just for like creating comics and just kind of creating like a community of for self publishers.
And that's a great idea. One of the big impetuses is because shipping is so expensive, and you could really combine shipping, but you could also cross pollinate so that somebody's looking at the Powerpulp catalog because they were brought there by one creator, and they end up seeing, oh well, let me, I'm getting some stuff shipped anyway. Might as well bundle my package, and now I can go a la carte and get this, this, and this.
Yeah, we started with like around 12 members at first, and we're up to like 28 members now, with like a little over like 110 different titles that we distribute, and yeah, so it's really terrific. A lot of great energy amongst the creators, and we're getting a lot of great feedback from. We've had like 16 retail shops order multiple times, and they've been giving us great feedback about how well the books are selling, and excitement they're getting from their customers about the material. So yeah, we're just gonna keep growing from here. We just finished our fourth month in existence, and it's just kind of been better and better every month. And we've got a lot of great people involved. Chris Anderson, Jamie Jones, my brother, Jim Rugg, the Bonds, Shelley Bond, and Philip Bond joined
Got
recently.
Matt King,
Um,
Corinne. We
yeah, Matt King, yeah, Corinne Halbert. Yeah, so many great. We just introduced Max Schaller out of Columbus, and we've got some other people that are waiting in the wings for us to sort of announce and help them get promotion and all that kind of stuff.
so right, and and key to the launch has been the contribution of you and your brother by being the ones that are actually doing the fulfillment. Right, the orders come in, and
Yeah,
you spend the weekends, getting those out.
yeah.
Um, so what's the what I mean? You're not going to like talk for the whole consortium, but what's the immediate outlook for the future and growth? You're just going to continue to add creators and continue along this path until you reassess.
Yeah, I mean we're kind of moving slowly, but we're just saying how it grows, amongst retailers, and if that keeps growing and we can keep adding more retailers and selling more and more books, then we have the opportunity to then just sort of expand our warehouse space a little bit, and just and just kind of keep going. Um, I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess that's just sort of we're trying to we're trying to take it slow, but we have plans in case things get increased like really fast. Like we've got all that kind of stuff worked
Right.
out.
The good problems to
Um,
have.
And that would be the thing that you would hope to have increase fast is other retailers based on the previous history of trust that you've been able to build. Because 4 months is a drop in the bucket for a business.
yeah,
We all, that being told, um, it sounds like you guys. I mean, It's funny because you've answered like half of my questions in a way because my biggest concern I expressed to James was you guys growing too fast. I would love to just keep not I mean started, but to start submitting for myself to be involved. But I have to just say out loud, like I just don't want. I don't see you guys doing something that I should be taking advantage. I should be contributing something to it. Is that still a part of the mechanism? Like you're bringing people in that can kind of build you guys as a proper collective of people, not just that's a cool book. We'll put that in the warehouse and see if it sells.
yeah. I mean when we talk to potential members or potential members like approach us, we always talk about that it's a collective, and
Yeah.
um, we want to be able to be available to help each other if somebody needs help, or if you're good at something, or even if you just already have an established relationship with some comic shops in your area.
Right. Right.
Please be willing. Would you be willing to talk to them about the rest of the books? That
Right.
kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Um, and so yeah, we always want people to to do something along those lines if they can, but it's not like a deal breaker or anything like that.
Well, okay.
There's only so much that actually is there to be done, especially like on like maybe like big things related to like how the business functions and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
So and there's a lot of it that's already kind of set up. We've got set up really well right now. But any little thing, always helps. It's just like as we've been reaching out to printers and stuff, seeing if they can give us a better deal on printing
That's
volume,
interesting.
because we've been able to kind of like collective
Yeah,
bargain now that we have so many members. We can say,
Gang
hey, we got
printing.
25 guys that they want to that they're all self-publishers looking to print their
Right.
stuff. If you give us a
Right.
good deal, we could maybe get you could get this much business. And so that we've had some come back and be like, yeah, we'll do a Powerpulp deal.
Oh
And,
wow.
and even if it takes off 10 cents per copy when you're printing,
Yeah.
or 20 cents, like
that's the same.
that's
Yeah,
good, actually. Like
Well,
that can sway
well, and
you
it's all going to
between, like,
get it all gets shipped to the same place anyways. So now you're eliminating the cost from independent publishers to have to pay, $50 to ship 100 books to you, because then the pallet will just get dropped onto you guys. Is that how you would see that?
right now, like, people, they send their own books to us.
Right.
But a lot of it has been like stock that everyone has just had,
Correct.
Um, but we have had some guys that have done new printings of things or new books, and we have had them just send it straight from the printer to us, because we know like they're going to be selling most of it through the Powerpulp anyways.
Right.
So yeah, so that is and as our if we can increase the warehouse space, then we can then take higher volumes of material, which again drops the cost per unit for creators, and you just make a little more profit, that way as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's news to us. That's a great update. Is that you guys are pooling resources on the potentially on the printing side of things too. That's great to hear.
Yeah, and we like our for like adding new creators. We've set up kind of like a little framework and schedule where we'll like consider adding new people like every 3 months.
Yeah, like a window.
Um,
That's
you
fair
know,
enough.
Open
and
up a
then
window.
yeah, and then that gives us plenty of time, because then we like to like when we have a new book available, like we like to like announce it across all our social media and kind of make a big deal about it, and like we're going to be doing more and more stuff where we're talking about books, and maybe shooting little videos and stuff like that, and so it's nice to have some time to shine light on a new member and new books, and then have time to go back and shine more light on books that we already have, that's because like still a lot of people don't know anything about the kind of the material that we're selling, and so it's great to just find new readers all the time.
Well, we go
I
ahead,
think.
Kurt.
Sorry. Go ahead, Jake. Go
Well,
ahead.
I was
No,
gonna
go
say
ahead, Jake.
we do this indie creator exchange which you're on right now, and we've found a lot of great indie creators to interview at IC3, and we started to kind of run out because we hit everybody that we met, but now we're just like Kurt is just calling everybody like fish in a barrel that's in the lineup for Powerpulp, and going over their history, and checking out their offerings, and it's great for us, but it's also great if people can come across, when they're googling something, an interview that gives the whole backstory, and you can see what the whole thing's about, and that's just going to lay there in perpetuity. So um, it's a great fit.
Well, the fascinating experiment is the people who have been in interviews with us since James. Um, the question, the framework of their questioning is like, oh, I should submit to them, but it always feels like they're thinking you guys are like a publisher. So, and I always kind of frame that in my feeling about doing my own printing, or printing and distribution is how I say it. Is I don't want to be anybody's babysitter. And I think one of the hardest things in your experiment is really challenging this theory, which is if you guys have 28 people, um, you know, assigned to, not locked in, but assigned to powerpulpcomics.com, then it's already happened once with me. Matt Chi is in my upcoming Crom Anthology #1 in the artist section, which is a 2-pager, which on one side is their pin up and a blow up, and then some information. And I give everybody the ability to send people by a QR code somewhere to find out more about their work. And he has it at Powerpulp Comics.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, and it's going to be one of these registerings for me, especially with Crom Anthology, is how many people that I do get involved who are going to want people to go to Powerpulp Comics. And that would be the first success, if you will, is that you guys in the way of like, it's not even like taste making, it's just taste, like genre based adventure pulp comics, right? That's where it goes. Then the other side of it in the experiment is somebody going to their local comic book and being like, look, I got 2 and 3 of this Dino Beast, but I want to give you like a heads up. Can you get #1 for me through that? Because I'm going to do that. That's why I haven't bought #1 yet. Is that I want to do a couple of, there's a couple of people I feel, Brian McRae being one of them, for Karina, where they belong in a comic book store because, definitely for the graphic quality, and it just holds that. And then one day where it becomes, the logo. I'm looking for a big power. I'm going to flash up on the screen the logo for Powerpulp Comics. That it's less about my publisher and more about me being a part of something that now people buy my comic and 3 other people's comics at the same time. And then they're getting, like I did for myself when I did the Comics That Influence. I bought, a bunch of comics, and the whole thing was getting a whole bunch of comics in the mail type of like thing. So you guys really are pushing it. And I just say, I pray that it really, really works to the benefit of what you guys, I think, are laying down. So, and thank you for doing it too, putting the energy and time in, John. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, if you want to be successful at anything, you got to put some effort in.
Sure.
And that's where some people get caught up on. They're like, oh well, you're not, you don't have paid employees that are doing like these kind of positions that would be done at a publisher, like
right.
A social media person, or like fulfillment or stuff. And it's like, well, no, that's just the effort you got to put in to like be successful and sell some comics. And if I was already going to be doing some of those things anyways, if I was selling through my own website, and now I'm selling more books through Powerpulp than I was selling before.
Yeah.
So it's like the effort pays off, and then other people get noticed, and like other people who have great looking stuff that like I think looks great, like they get to sell books too, and that's terrific.
Yeah, no, it's.
Right? Yeah.
I think the timing is also perfect, having lost Diamond Distribution, which had its predatory like indie distribution model in there, but they were just making sure they got theirs, and that was it. And once they got theirs, they just oh, thank you for the check. Oh yeah, the books we think got there. Yeah, okay, blah blah, blah and that damaged and all that kind of stuff. But you guys are filling a space instead of saying, oh, well, we'll fill the space. We'll be the distributor. It's now about like, no, we're distributing a certain aspect of independent comics, that has been around for a while. And we all share a similar vantage point towards knowing what success means, especially when you're all working together.
Yeah, and so I like to think of self-published comics as like one of the three pillars of American comics. Like
Wow.
in
Yeah.
my mind, I break it down as you've got your corporate comics, right?
Yeah.
Your big two stuff, and then you have independent comics who are still published by a publisher. So that's your
Big. Yeah, they're
Fantagraphics,
still
that's your
pretty big.
Image, your Dark Horse. Yeah. And then you have self-published. And you got to think of like books like Elfquest, Cerebus, Ninja Turtles, Bone. Those are all self-published books.
Yep.
And eventually they, would join a publisher or do reprints or something like that. But those are some of the best comics that have been made. And they were all self-published. But there was like, there's like a time, post 90s where the opportunity for self-publishing and like releasing your work into the wider audience, it just started to diminish until it kind of almost just sort of evaporated. And so that's part of the challenge that we're taking head on to try and solve that problem of like, well, how do you get your, how does self-publishing come back into the light, and how do we just create an opportunity to get the stuff out there and just get it in front of people? Because the more people that see it, all these self-published things, like they love it, because it's like it's work that's of a quality that is just as good as anything by a publisher, and the stories are more creative and original, and it's really worthwhile. It's more worth your time and your dollars. And so just how can we get that in front of more people?
Yeah, I'm going to have a scrolling just the front page of powerpulpcomics.com, because I do it every time I get a notification from you guys. I just go to the site. I love the array of eclecticness, but I also know I'm not going to get shorted on one title to the next, to not even knowing the artist or the storyline, because everything's hitting the same note on the page when you scroll through. And I think that's another like power play you guys have with the website itself. So congratulations.
I just want to also remind people or commend you that every minute that you guys are shipping books for these creators is another minute that they could be creating, instead of going down to the post office and going to get mailers, and then, oh god, I don't have any more packing tape, or I don't have any more bubble wrap, I have to drive half an hour. So all this kind of stuff, it really does help, I think, to have a consortium, especially when they're doing the fulfillment and the distribution. So realize that there's it adds up times 28, like how much time people can just put their head down and do pages.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, let's get into the Indie Creator Exchange. Of course, he's holding it up right there. Turbo Pit Fighter. and we're waiting to
Oh,
hear
oh,
what
you
feedback, critique, and questions John,
you,
excuse me, has
you
for
have
us.
the Jake edition as opposed to the Kurt edition. Kurt's second printing or second batch has the dark letters up on the masthead. I think you have the light letters up on the masthead.
Yeah, he has the crop. He has your version. Yeah, I sent him
Right,
one of
and it's also
yours. That's one of the last. That's one of the last, right, from the
I still have
from
I
my
still have
back stock.
7, I think.
I got two,
Yeah.
I think. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
So
let us have it.
Turbo Pit Fighter. I love everything about this. Like
too nice.
absolutely everything, guys.
Thank
Like
you.
the story is fantastic, and like in this sort of it's like 12 pages so far, I think is
Yep.
in this one.
Teaser, yep.
Yep.
Um yeah, I have so many questions, and there's so
Go
much
for it.
more that I want to know about just the world, and like Turbo's backstory and what's going to happen. Like, and so, and that's what you want as a reader. Like, that's what I'm looking for, is like I'm hooked. I'm totally hooked. Um, the art is just fantastic. I love the heavy black and white. The sort of graphic quality that's going on. Like it's just such a complete, amazing package. Um, I love the character. I love the striped shirt. It's like, if that stays her sort of signature look or not. But it's like it's very clean and kind of classic, and it just like really works. And with the little spines on her, like her boxing gloves and stuff. And
Yeah.
it made me think of, are you guys familiar with Super Boxers
No,
by
No.
Ron
no.
Wilson?
No.
So I got my copy here. It's a Marvel. It's like one
Oh
of those
my
like
gosh.
Marvel graphic novels when they had that line in the
Right.
Oh
80s,
wow,
right?
Right.
look at that.
Um, and it's kind of like Turbo, where it's like a sort of a future world that's sort of and it's divided by the rich class, and then like
Is it
all
like
the poor.
rollerball, John? Isn't it kind of more like a rollerball?
I've never seen Rollerball, so I don't know.
Oh, sir, you have homework.
Uh,
You guys are
I
gonna lose
assume,
your mind.
Well, there was a redo.
and
There was a redo. So
maybe it was inspired by Rollerball too. Maybe that's where Ron Wilson was like got
What
his
year? What year is Super Boxer?
83.
Yeah, I think it is because
'83.
I think it's like 79, 79 or 80. I think is
Rollerball.
rollerball.
No,
I'll put up on the screen
I think it
exactly.
might even be earlier. Rollerball was like kind of like a dystopian future where it's like a combination of like hockey and roller derby.
No, it's roller
Right. Well, like
derby.
roller derby, but
Yeah,
also like fighting and it's the
you can do
yeah,
that
the
in roller
idea of
derby.
the gladiatorial competition in the future, right?
Yeah,
Right.
and they've got like boxing gloves with like
Oh
spines on
wow,
it, and
that's awesome!
Oh
Holy
wow, look
moly!
at that.
Who's the artist, John?
it's yeah, Ron Wilson does it all.
Oh wow!
We
Yeah, created and penciled by Ron
I've got to get a
Wilson.
copy. We got to get
Um,
all
copies,
right.
Jake.
Well, let's get them before this airs. That's for
I will.
sure.
yeah, but when I was reading Turbo, I was like, oh my, because I just discovered Super Boxers, like, I don't know, maybe like 8 months ago or
Okay.
something.
Wow.
And so like when I was reading Turbo, I'm like, oh man, this is like a more violent, visceral kind of take on a Super Boxers. It's like a lot more. It's grittier. Um, but yeah, I love everything you guys have going on here. Like I need more.
Thanks for the tip on that. Yeah, we're gonna check that out. Yeah, so in the future, we set up. There's pretty much everything gone to shit. The wasteland, post-apocalypse, the big cities are all destroyed. And the sport of the day is, these deathmatch pit fights, and Turbo, finds a place for herself because she's extraordinarily gifted. She's strong and she's a good battler, and we slowly go through her backstory. By the time issue 1 is done, all 28 pages, like her origin, her childhood origin, should be well on its way. And issue 2, which is already penciled 24 pages, just kind of takes on, interspersing flashbacks with older Turbo, and the trophy girl. So that brought us into like making the prequel backstory of how the world got into decline. And we spent a lot on time on that on our other spin-off tales, which are coming out in Doom Magazine #1. Not allowed to say when that's coming out, but we're hoping and planning, but
Sooner than later.
I won't say it. I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed to say. Yeah.
I'm not allowed to say. No, Jake's not allowed to say dates. That's the only thing I've told Jake he can't do. Stop saying dates.
But yeah, we put a bunch of thought into like how did the world get this way, and exactly how did it unfold, because we spend a lot of time on the podcast talking about what's going on now and what's the trends that we're seeing, and just playing that forward, maybe 50, 100 years, and I think Turbo is going to be about 200 years off into the future. But just starting to see how things go down, because so many technologies are actually here already when you think about it. But yeah, if you have,
Yeah, because when Jake and I started this, it was 1999. We started working on, and Jake had actually penciled the first issue 2000. So, and then we just had a break just because of different life choices. And then, I was given a call for almost 4 years ago. Well, no, yeah, 3.5 years ago from here. And it was like I had just talked to him like a week or two prior. And when he said, "Oh, let's work on a comic book together," I just said, "Yeah, Turbo, you got the damn pages. It's going to be easy. It's going to be easy that way." But yeah, just like Jake's saying, is that the world has become so science fiction based as a storyline, even by the news and the doom scrolling through social media and stuff. That there's I can say I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for Jake, but working on this with him, there's a bit of a tension release. There's an ability to step back. We have the ability to step back. We might not agree on everything, which is a great thing in a relationship. But it's something that as I always say, it's Sundays for me is hanging out at Jake's house like I was as a teenager, though I didn't hang out with Jake as a teenager.
Somebody like me.
With my friends.
And like me.
Yeah, your friends. And it was always, we weren't like socially topical, but it would be movies and cartoons and comics and everything. And then it ultimately got to girls, like that,
Right.
So and once again, but it was all about relieving the stress of being a teenager, in the world, that kind of thing. And that's something that we feel like we bring to.
But John, I'm curious as a writer. If you have any questions, you got us here. Let us have it. Maybe a lot of other people are thinking the same thing that might be watching.
Well, I mean, it's not quite a question, but it's like a compliment. Like I really like how Turbo, like she's fighting this dude, and it says that like she doesn't, like she's not gonna wear the armor that this guy's got on. Like she doesn't need it, or just sort of like doesn't want it. And just like that fact, like you already know, like, well, she's definitely gonna be tough because she's buff and she's like punching this guy's face in. But then like that fact, it just kind of adds to it where you're like, oh, like she's like really tough. It just like adds this like grittiness or quality to her character just by that one simple thing of her disregarding the need to like put on the extra armor before going into the
Interesting.
fight.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah. I
great.
mean, I think she says at some other point the guy's too slow, and I mean, definitely the
Mm-hmm.
armor slows you down, right? So, yeah, I tried. When I originally wrote the dialogue of that scene, I was really trying to get into the head of somebody. Um, I guess method acting or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
just I yeah. So now that I'm much older, I you really think about, wow, I had some inspired stuff. And that's why it's interesting that you said that your ideas are coming so prolifically now. And it's not hard at all just to sit down and just start creating something. It's great to hear that, because when you look at somebody like the Beatles or the Stones, or the Who, they've been around for like 50 years and they can't write a hit nowadays to save their lives, or maybe like just not as good as they used to anyway. But you got to
Yeah, yeah, you've got it's like you've got that burst of creativity or something that only lasts a certain span of
right. You
time
got and
for like
yeah.
your peak stuff. It doesn't happen for everyone that way, and like hopefully it won't be that way for me or for you guys. But maybe I reach like book 10 of whatever I'm doing, and then maybe after that they kind of turn into crap. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, comics is a little different from music. Comics is so formulaic. You could always sit down and do something, right? But that doesn't guarantee it's
Yeah,
going to be a hit, right? That's always different. That great, inspiring thing that you're getting off your jollies doing your art, but at the same time, people are consuming it and people appreciate it. So I mean, there's a lot of
yeah,
people do it just to get it out of their system that don't sell very many copies, and then there's people that have a nice balance.
yeah. And I always just try and do like whatever I'm gonna enjoy
Right.
reading is what I want to work on, because at the end of the day, at the very least, I'll have a book that I made that I'm gonna reread
Right.
over and over because I enjoy it. And
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing about putting something in print and having it kick around in comic stores for the next hundreds of years, literally before the paper disintegrates, is that you never know who you're going to reach, and it might not even be in our lifetime. It might be, many many generations later when somebody comes across it, and you also never know when something is going to pop as like the latest cult find for collectors, and that, like, you look at John Tar, right, and that just sat there dormant for so long,
yeah,
right? So
oh
just
yeah,
just fast forward like 100 years, and how many John Tars are going to be discovered, and later on by somebody going through some crate somewhere, right?
yeah. Well, I mean that's a great point. And on Powerpulp, we had just released that book Leo
Right,
Derrick.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
If you
Good
guys saw that,
example.
and that's
Yeah.
from a couple of brothers made it in like
Good
1983
example.
and self-published it, and then it just kind of went away, and they just had boxes of them just still in their garages until Jim Rugg tracked them down
Ah,
and started talking to them, and
yeah, did the legwork and
you can go watch his video and stuff. And yeah, and then we're like, oh, and he's like, yeah, I've still got a couple hundred copies, like. And we're like, well, let's put them out there and see if people
right,
want them.
off and running. And
Yeah,
then sometimes you revitalize the character, or you revitalize the artist, right? Getting back into the trade, right? So you never know what can happen.
yeah,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
it's all good stuff. So we're not necessarily making it for the people that are alive today. Same thing with music. You're not necessarily making it for the people that, like, like I always tell my students, um, Picasso's daughter is a lot more rich than he ever was. Like she's
Right.
probably got like an apartment in every major city, like with all the money, and and she never lifted a paintbrush probably. So the art, the value of the art, reaching people, it's a very important thing, and we all create for the art itself. We always have that expression, create art for art's sake.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of comic book artists that are just also toiling away, and you may not necessarily be the Jack Kirby, or the success of Jim Lee. I don't know, like Jim Lee probably got richer than Jack Kirby ever did, but but you know there's the artwork, right? I mean, Jack Kirby is a movement at this point. Jack Kirby is an influence. He's a statement.
Right.
He's much more than money. Put it that way.
Yeah. Just because your work doesn't receive immediate
Yes.
success does not mean it wasn't worthwhile for you to do
Yes.
that work,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So, like
Yep.
40 years from now, Emerald Emu and Turbo Pit Fighter are going to be
Right.
huge.
Yes.
Great.
Exactly.
We'll be fighting each other. We'll be fighting each other for shelf space in the stores. That'll
Yeah,
be the issue.
we'll get together as
Oh,
old retired guys
yeah. Let's. Yep.
and
Yeah. Well,
look
that's
at how
well,
great
that's
they are.
well. One of the secret magical aspects for Jake and I in doing our channel, the making Turbo Pit Fighter, and these extended outbreak segments is this is our retirement program. So there's no. The conclusion is, one of us, if not both of us, just lose our minds, become infirmed or dies. This is because Jake and I have known each other long enough that making that statement is pretty hands down truthful. It's not just a wish. It's like I'm always going to have creative output. Always have it. If Jake's smart enough to stick with me, um, you know, then that output will be him and I together. But yeah, I think that's I'm very much in the same boat with you on that. Who knows what's going to happen 10 years from now and stuff. But look, we've taken probably just enough time from you from this nice Sunday. But we always give the ending of the interview to our guests to give a big shout out to where they are, who they are, how they get a hold of what it is that they make. So take it away, John.
Yeah, if you want to read any of my offering of comics, they're all available right now at powerpulpcomics.com.
It's easy as that, people.
Mm-hmm.
Easy
Yeah.
as that. Link down in the description, but you just type it in, and once you do it, once you have it typed into Google once, every time you start putting PO, it just pops up. So that's the best way. Well, John, can't thank you enough. And as we tell everybody, Jake and I are not one and done interviewers. That means we don't have a list and we're like, we've just interviewed V. John Coates. We don't ever have to talk to him again. We're looking forward to seeing you again. You're also a part of the Indie Creator Update Reels. So I give all of our guests about a month, and then the beginning of the following month, you'll get an email from me, 1 minute long or less, in horizontal format, just giving us an update on what's going on. Yeah, I share them all together in a reel, and they're in a playlist. And it's another thing that I hope is going to have an incredible amount of historical value. But thank you so very much. And we look forward to meeting you one day at a show. So we'll go from there. But Jake, you want to take us out?
All right, so folks can check out our YouTube landing page. We have many, many, many episodes of Making Turbo Pit Fighter. You can catch our episodes live as they're created every Sunday Eastern, 10 o'clock ish. Check out our other channels. We have the Indie Creator Exchange, which you just watched, and our Comics That Influence, where we do flip throughs of the coolest comics we can get our grubby hands on. Other than that, we'll see you guys next Sunday, 10 a.m. live. And especially for you creators, tune in if you're drawing and you just want something to listen to while you're drawing, because we're drawing too.
All right, Jake, I'll see you next Sunday. John, hold tight. We got a little bit of an after show. And yep. Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thanks, guys.